Larsson. Oh, he's in! Henrik Larsson! That is sensational! O'Reilly, how about that for a pass? Jota! How about that for a finish? That is Jota for you! In for Henrik Larsson, and Rodgers! His first goal for Celtic! Here is Shunsuke Nakamura! Exquisite!
Good evening and welcome back to the Celtic Unrestricted View. I'm JP and joining me tonight we've got Sean and Barry. Well lads, it's been a wee while since we were on last. There's plenty more happened with Celtic. Last time I spoke to you, Barry, we were outside Celtic Park, mate. We spoke about a bit of pushy then, and obviously now he's in the door. But it's good to see you, mate, and hope you're well.
Hey JP, thanks for having me on. I think the last time I spoke to you was just about 15 minutes ago, and probably about an hour before that, and every other hour, and that's the case most days. So,
on the channel.
Aye, on the channel. All right, I got you. No, great to be here, mate. Thanks for hosting as always. Thanks everybody for tuning in and joining us, and good to have Sean on the pod as well. Looking forward to the chat, guys.
Yeah, and just as Barry said there, Sean, it's hopefully you've sorted out your wee audio issues and we can have you for a full episode this time instead of you doing a hockey cokey on us.
Aye, fingers crossed, mate. I don't want to be known for that guy that's, the laggy Wi-Fi guy or something. I don't know. But
you're right, laggy.
It's not. Hopefully, the last time obviously I was on, it was when Barry was on, mate, and that was a good chat with Barry Bannon. And this night we've got the other Barry on, mate. I'm looking forward to that, and aye, it'll be a good chat, mate.
Must be the way it feels to you, mate. We've got a Barry on every time you're on, so you're damn lucky, as I say. Yes, obviously, just to touch on early on tonight, before we get into, obviously, Sunday's match, we do have some audio from Brendan Rodgers as well, which we'll all play and go through as we go. But I just wanted to start off tonight, Barry, with our beloved James Forrest, mate. He has become recently Celtic's most decorated player. And obviously, I thought it would be nice to touch on, what James has given the club first and foremost. And obviously how he's still giving that to the club. Now, he did touch upon his own presser that he's given everything to Celtic, and obviously he's been a one-club man. He has had his suitors throughout the year. Not John Suter, obviously, because he plays with the other side of the city, but he's had plenty of suitors through the year. But he's decided to stay with Celtic, mate, and probably the best decision he's ever made, because he's now went down in the history books as Celtic's most decorated player over Bobby Lennox.
Yeah, no, an exceptional footballer in his own right. Before you start talking about his commitment to the club, his longevity, the trophies he's won, but over and above all that, he's just an excellent footballer. In this spell that Brendan's been back, he's proven to be a really important player, yet again. And even when he came on last weekend there, I thought he brought something to the team.
Yeah.
I thought he brought that injection of impetus and just that desire to make something happen in the final third. So, one of the best moments of last season for me was, the final league game, wee Jamesy getting his goal, to keep his streak going. And he was written off at times. He's been written off at times, by even at times by our own fans. But a tremendous footballer. I mean, when you're picking your kind of all-time favourite Celtic teams, I don't know how many people would have Jamesy in it, but if he was, you certainly couldn't argue it. That's how good he's been.
Yeah, Sean, as Barry touches on there, he's all-round ability. Talking about teams, you know, throughout Celtic's years, he is in Scott Brown's team, because Scott Brown picked a team not so long ago in an interview, and Scott did pick Jamesy, along with guys like Kieran Tierney, Callum McGregor, Virgil van Dijk, etc. So they're all kind of guys that Scott played with throughout his time at Celtic. And he's not in that team for no reason, mate. And as Barry says as well, he has had his doubters throughout the years as well. Probably still got them, to be honest. I mean, I was at the game on Sunday, and there was a guy right behind me, and he, you know, his words were, "What are we bringing him on for?" And I just turned around as if, mate, what are you watching? Like, but do you understand who the guy is? And without trying to be too condescending, I think some people just forget James's natural all-round ability, Sean, and what he can bring to this team.
I totally agree with you, JP. He's and not only that, he's a model professional, mate. You know, he goes about his business quietly. You know, you don't see him on social media. You know, he's great in interviews, albeit he doesn't say much. But he's an all-round professional, mate, and he's a one-man club. He's been at Celtic for get-go, and every manager he's played under, mate, he's brought success to the manager and the team. I mean, even in Angie's season, he scored the goal against Johnson to take us into the cup final. You know, when we were struggling to get a goal that game, and Forrest came on and he gets a winner. And he's done that. You know, one of my favourite moments at Celtic Park was Shakhtar Karagandhi game, and it was Forrest that got the winner in that. You know, the infamous, the famous moment when Lennon ran down the touchline.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know, and he's I hear that as well. You know, I've heard people saying, you know, starting a season with, you know, going into a new season with James Forrest in your lineup or on the bench or whatever, but you know, massively underrated, and I don't know why, because like you said, his career speaks for itself. He's now, you know, the most decorated player, and he's still got bags of talent. His ball retention in the game, every game that he plays in, is, you know, is a better player at Celtic right now that odds the ball better than James Forrest. I couldn't think of one, mate. He's still got bags of talent.
Yeah, there's no doubt, mate. Obviously, in his both spells, in my opinion, I feel that Brendan has probably had the best out of him of all the coaches he's been under. And that includes guys like Big Ange and even Neil Lennon at his time. And Neil Lennon was the one that gave him his debut when he came on and scored against Motherwell that day. All that time ago. But I really do think that Brendan's had the best out of him in both spells, Barry. And obviously, James has then took his game onto that much of a level that Celtic have also decided to keep him all the time that they have. I mean, they could have very well cast in on him, mate. No doubt there's been plenty of offers through the years without doing any due diligence right now. But there would have been teams after James Forrest and what James Forrest's talent would bring in football to a team.
Yeah, and it's also true that he's had plenty of competition over the years. You know, Celtic have signed a lot of wide players. We've not signed so many this summer, I have to say. But, you know, typically speaking, Celtic we sign a lot of wide players. So James has had plenty of competition over the years. And you know what? He's been proven more than a match. You know, if he's not retained his place to these people that have joined the club, he certainly kept them honest, you know. And I think you're right, JP. I think under Brendan, James's probably played his best football. And that might just be to do with Brendan's system, you know, the fact that he likes the ball to get these wide players as quick as possible. But there's no doubting Forrest's ability. Forrest could clearly have played in the English Premier League at some capacity, or other leagues in the world, because I think Sean mentions it there. Technically, he's very, very sound. He might have lost a yard over the years, but he doesn't very rarely lose the ball.
Yeah, no, 100%. For me, that's one of the things about James. And over the years, you've watched a player develop, and his tactical awareness in the game as well, regardless of what opponent. I mean, look at the play. What really springs to mind is a night Bayern Munich beat us 2-1 in Brendan's first spell in the Champions League at Celtic Park, when he beats about 3 the Bayern Munich. Now he gave, what's the big fella's name again? Oh man, he's been on to play for Real Madrid as well, the left fullback at the time. Alaba. That night he gave him a torrid time, an absolute torrid time. His movement, the way he played, his positional sense on the pitch, the way he can take the ball in a half position and just totally eliminate people for fun. And David Alaba, at some points in that game that night, was looking for a sat-nav to find where James Forrest was going. And that's the first time I've seen a player like that and that calibre. And this is what I'm talking about. This is how good James Forrest is, if he can do that to a player like David Alaba, who's been, fantastic in world football. But that bit of play to set up Callum McGregor's goal, if you remember the way he cuts in for the wing, goes across and then puts the ball through to Callum to score, was just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And that's just a perfect example, basically what James Forrest can do. And obviously, as Sean mentioned as well, the Shakhtar Karagandhi goal that officially put us into the Champions League group phase. So we're at that point just now where we've got a playoff. Having a guy like James Forrest who's been over that line with that abundance experience can only benefit the Celtic squad, in my opinion. Obviously, we're going to move on now, lads. There's been big news come out of Celtic today that Johnny Kenny has penned a new 4-year contract. I've got some audio just now. We're going to have a wee listen to Brendan speaking on that, and then we'll have a wee chat regarding what Brendan says about Johnny. Here we go.
Brendan, we can just start with the news that Johnny Kenny's extended his deal up until 2029. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's good news for Johnny and the club. A young player that was signed a few years ago, went away, got experience, has come back, and we can really see the difference in his development since he came back in January. So we think he's still got a load more development to go. He's quick, he's hungry, and like I say, we think in the future he can be a really good asset for the club.
Is he likely to be part of somewhere else to gain that valuable experience?
Well, at this very moment, he's here and a part of our squad. So I think you look through to the end of the month, and obviously there's still work across the squad to do. But at this very moment in time, he's had a really good pre-season and worked very hard. This will give him confidence and give him that feeling that he's wanted at the club. And then with all the players, we'll always assess where they're at. But at this moment, he's very much in our thinking.
So, obviously, as we can hear there, Barry, that Brendan was quite upbeat about that. And obviously, he did say a big well done to Johnny. It's good for him, obviously, to still be there. Maybe a bit of a surprise for certain Celtic fans. I think Celtic fans, maybe I thought Johnny was going to be the one maybe heading out on loan or, going somewhere. I know Bolton showed interest in him. They had a bid just shy of £1 million failed for him. And now he's signing a new deal, so it would take more than £1 million to even move him anywhere across to the Forge even, let alone Celtic Park. So my thoughts are I'm probably surprised as well, because again, you're thinking along the lines, he might have been one of the ones that was, going out, but going with the way Brendan was, even when he was pressed on, is it, is that long-term thinking? Is he going back out and on? And Brendan quickly answered there about being part of the squad and obviously giving food for thought there, mate. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I was surprised. You know, being honest with you, I was surprised they gave him a new contract because I don't see him playing a whole lot of football for Celtic this season. Although I think he's looked good in the pre-season games. You know, Brendan says there's a lot of development in him. So I would expect Johnny Kenny to go out on loan before the window closes. I think that'll be his pathway. But obviously the club believe in him enough. Brendan believes in him enough to give him the new contract. They obviously expect with a bit more development, he can play for Celtic, or they're safeguarding for a future sale. But it did take me by surprise, I'll be honest.
Yeah, obviously yourself, Sean, Johnny Kenny getting a new 4-year deal, and then hearing the manager's thoughts.
Well, I think, mate, if you're going to give him a new deal, it's going to be beneficial to give him during his tenure with Brendan. If he's going to be a part of the squad, we don't quite know that yet. Brendan's certainly not alluded to that, but if there's anybody going to develop him at the age he is, 22 years of age, Brendan's the man to do it. So if you think about it, he's only 2 years off Adam Ida. In that sense, he does 24. So he's obviously still got a lot of development ahead of him, but there's enough there. But I've saw in pre-season, and I do like the guy. I like what he's about. He does put himself about, and he's good at coming forward, taking the ball in, moving it on. He's got lots of great attributes, mate. So in terms of giving him a new contract, I think it's a good move by Celtic. But I do agree with Barry. I think putting him out on loan, because we've got. You'd like to think we'd maybe get another striker in the door, mate. And obviously when we've got Yamada there, Maeda can play through the middle. I just don't see if he's going to get any game time unless there's a huge injury crisis at Celtic. But I definitely think it's a good bit of business for the looking forward, mate.
Yeah, I think it's a big surprise to most Celtic fans, if I'm honest, that Kenny's, especially the timing of it as well, with obviously the transfer window still ongoing and, things happening in there. So I think the surprising element of that is he's been given a new 4-year deal. My thoughts have changed now, lads. I've got to be honest. Even hearing Brendan speaking about him, I wouldn't be dead fast and thinking that he's now going about the door. I did up until today. And then when I heard the manager speak, I thought, right, okay, they're obviously working with this fella. There's another wee bit of audio I'm going to play just now because it's relevant, obviously, to Johnny Kenny. And Brendan kind of backed him up. It was towards the end of today's press when the guy asked about Yamada going on the pitch. And obviously, this is what Brendan replied with. And this is why my head is slightly turned because of this reply.
It was perhaps maybe a surprise that Shin Yamada was left on the bench at the weekend. Is there a plan for him before, maybe just a wee bit rusty at the minute, or what's the plans for him?
Who's the surprise by?
Just maybe the fans that he was on your sub at the weekend.
I don't know about you watched the game, but I put Johnny Kenny on.
Yeah.
So you can only put 11 players on, and we have a big squad. So we took Adam off and we put Johnny on. And in that period we scored. And we put 2 8s on to freshen the team, and one of them scored. So I can only play 11 players, And I know in football people's values grow when they're not playing. But I always decide what I think is ready for the game. And if Shen or someone else doesn't go on, it's because in that moment I felt the game needed something else. Johnny Kenny's done really well for us over pre-season. He's worked very hard, he's been intense, he's created goals, and he's done well. So, but if I'm to answer every question of the player that you don't play or play, then we'll be sitting all day and night.
So Barry, obviously listening to that then and hearing the manager speaking there, you can understand why my head's now been turned, because he didn't even have to do that. He could have really gave a different answer completely, but he went all in defending Johnny Kenny with that reply. I loved how I just love the way Brendan handles it. And he goes, I don't know if you watched the game, but I put Johnny Kenny on, and he changed and affected the game, and we scored the goal. And that's what, I mean, I'm really glad it's not just me, because for a while I thought I was going like silly in the head. Johnny Kenny does ultimately affect games he plays in. He might not be, he's not doing step overs, he's not like Ronaldinho and completely destroying people 1-on-1, but he does affect the games. He's big, he's strong, he's got a wee bit of pace about him, and ultimately he can score when he's given the opportunity. So no, I don't. I'm not so sure, Barry. I don't know if Johnny's just going to get farmed out and loaned, mate. This all depend now how he performs between now and the games we've got towards the end of the month, because I do think he'll get game time.
Well, he's definitely got a chance. Brendan's given him a chance. So, however, I don't think that reply was about Johnny Kenny. I think that reply was more about Brendan defending his substitutions and his ability to manage the squad and to make the right decisions. Because essentially, if you question Brendan on bringing Kenny on over Yamada, you're basically saying, Brendan, you got that decision wrong. Mm-hmm. And he's came back at the media and said, well, actually, I make the decisions here. That was the decision I made. Kenny affected the game. The other sub I brought on got the winning goal. Therefore, that's why I'm sitting in this seat and you're not, because I know what I'm doing and you probably don't. So, a guy like Brendan Rodgers, people who operate at the top level of what they do not like it when an outsider questions their methods. And that's basically what that guy for the media was doing. And Brendan wasn't slow in putting him in his place. But yeah, Johnny Kenny will get a chance because he's there. And I like some of his attributes as well, JP. I like his work rate. I think he holds the ball up well. But I haven't seen enough of him to really comment. I would really need to see more of him to sort of figure out what his game is. But as the lone striker in the few pre-season games I watched him, I thought he was definitely a handful.
Yeah, Sean, obviously, you're looking over pre-season with Johnny Kenny, and you look at the Sporting Lisbon game and how well he affected that. He gets up Luke McCown's goal, and holding off a big boy in Jeremiah St. Justin, and obviously really putting his body in, turning him, going down the line, by the way, which was an ultimate press. Again, I don't like mentioning other players when I'm doing this, but I'm talking about Johnny Kenny. But Anamura's aggression to get a gap break in the first place by pressing their winger. I think it was the boy Trancau. He actually presses a winger. The boy then forces the ball and they lose possession. So he forces a pass out of him. They lose possession. And then ultimately, Johnny Kenny uses his pace. We go down the line. He gives the ball into Luke McCown and Celtic go on and score. So Johnny Kenny done that more than once during pre-season. You look at the ball with Casper Schmeichel, he runs in behind. Nick Pope, what's the goalie doing, Tom? Can you hear the audio just now? He comes out, tries to header it, the ball bounces over him, Johnny Kenny runs in and scores. So there's plenty of moments throughout pre-season. Johnny showed that movement, that kind of pace, strength, to obviously back up what Brendan's saying there.
No, I completely agree, JP. I do think, there was Brendan was sticking up for Johnny in that interview, but I'd also agree with Barry. I think he was also, getting the message across that, I'm the man who makes the decisions here, and Brendan won't be influenced by the fans want to see Yamada or anything like that. He's pretty firm on he'll play who he thinks is the best for that position for that game, and clearly if he felt enough and he's seen enough of Johnny Kenny to put him on in a game that we needed to get a goal. So it's a big it's a big show of what Brendan thinks of him, because he could have turned to Yamada, who has got a lot of great attributes as well. But he chose to go with Kenny, and like one of the commenters had said there, he's got loads of talent. He's speed, powerful, and he can score a goal if it comes in front of him. So, and he is only 22 as well, so the development's going to be there for him. So, I liked everything I seen about him in pre-season. I was surprised. I didn't expect him to be one of the ones that would come up, and sort of like take that opportunity during pre-season. But like Barry said, especially in competitive games, that's where his bread and butter will be, in the competitive games. So once we get a look at him in these games, mate, we might get a better feel for what he's going to bring to the club. If he's run long enough, unless he doesn't get put out on loan. But I tend to agree with you, JP. That might not be the case now.
No, my head's slightly turned on it. And by the way, Pittodrie coming up on Sunday, obviously we'll touch on that as we go. He's not adverse to scoring up there either. He showed that because he done that with a nice header the last time we were up there and we won 5-1. So, listen, as I said, I think he's tailor-made, especially for Scottish football. Now, people might be sitting here watching us and saying, he's got a bit to go to shows in the Champions League. No, you're probably right, definitely. But by the way, he's played in Europe because he scored goals for Shamrock Rovers in the Europa Conference. Now, before somebody jumps on me and says the level's 98, it is, and you're right, it would be. But I think he's tailor-made for the Scottish League, so I wouldn't be too quick to say he's the one that's going to go on loan and he's the one that's going to move on. And my head's totally turned just slightly with, one, his performances, two, they're giving him a new deal, and three, listening to Brendan speaking about him today. But obviously, lads, Brendan never just touched on Johnny Kenny in his interview. He was asked about the little elephant that's surrounding the room at the moment, and recruitment and transfers. So obviously we're going to have a wee listen to this. This is my final audio from Brendan, and then we'll have a wee chat about this, and then we'll touch on the weekend's game. So we'll get Brendan's thoughts on the transfers and what he said today. And this is for also anybody that missed Brendan's interview today or hasn't managed to see it yet. We'll go through some what I think's the hot topics from his interview today. Apart from him talking about flying on Madonna's plane, and he didn't even know it was a plane, which was phenomenal. But that's another story. But here we go. This is about 2.5 minutes long, this one. So bear with us, and obviously then we'll have a wee chat.
Since we last spoke to you last weekend,
there's no news. No, I've got nothing new for you. No.
And is that something that is still ongoing with yourself and the club? You're still discussing, still looking for other options out there, other players to bring in?
Yes, that's the definite plan. It's very clear what we need to improve, and lots of work going on. Clearly, by ourselves and probably every club. That's the reality of this time of the year. There's lots of work going on throughout many clubs. So, but for us, I know the work that Paul and his staff are putting in. So yeah, we're hoping that we can conclude some deals and improve the squad.
Is there still that confidence, Brendan, that by the window shutting you will have what you deem necessary?
Homeowners in Scotland, you need to take advantage of the 2025 Scottish Solar Programme before it's too late.
Well, yeah, that's the ongoing plan. I think as a football club, we will want to have the best available squad that we can to get through the season. And I mentioned it before. I think a manager always wants it now. To prepare the team as early as you can. But we know the window shuts by the end of August, and hopefully by then everything is in place. We're all stable and then ready to go.
Brendan, I think a lot of fans are asking why deals haven't been concluded, especially for sort of kind of wing and attacking area. Is that a complicated answer, or is it many things, many reasons?
Yeah, I just think that there's obviously many things that go into it. I don't do the deal, so I can't answer that for you. But I know that behind the scenes, obviously, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of discussions that go on to conclude deals. So I'm hopeful that come the end of this window, we will have those deals concluded, and we get the players in that can help us go forward. I think the focus now at this moment from myself is to really make sure that the players that are here are in the best possible condition, best mindset to play the games, and that's where we're at this very moment.
You get 10 days.
So obviously there, as we can hear, he mentions it a couple of times, although I was slightly frustrated listening to a bit of that interview there, Barry, because I don't know how many times he had to answer the same question, but worded 2 or 3 different ways for different folk. It was asking the same question, really. I don't know what, he'd already answered that question, but he must have had to say to them, there's work going on, there's what, Now, ultimately, as we sit here, obviously we know the discrepancies in the team, which is the forward areas. That's where we are light, especially in numbers. And there's obviously a growing frustration now from elements of the fans, and obviously, a lot of the supporters groups and stuff, that work hasn't been done yet. It's coming across to me that, there's folk there thinking that nothing's happening at all, and people are falling asleep, and they're not doing the job, and they're not caring. And there's narratives that Brendan's away, so he doesn't really care either. And, I've heard numerous of stuff just today. I've even read stuff like that. So, in my opinion, this isn't something new. This is something that, happens nearly every season. And whether it's right or wrong, obviously, it's measured to me by Celtic success, and obviously how Celtic, what they do on the field. And for me, we're talking about a club here who sell their best players every year and still blitter Scottish football out of the park. Now, no other club that I can think of in football operate that way. They certainly don't do that every year. And there's far superior clubs in terms of Celtic's budgets all over. We're even looking at a club just now in Newcastle, who's probably one of the richest clubs, if not the richest club in the world. And they've only signed Anthony Alanga in the window. So, no, they've got Aaron Ramsdale as well, I think, haven't they? They've just recently signed a goalkeeper there. But other than that, I mean, look at all the targets they've had. The one's going to Manchester United, there's other ones went elsewhere. The transfer market is it's a very difficult place to be in. It's a very difficult market to negotiate. I understand it's frustrating, and it's not where we want to be. But you heard Brendan there, the focus isn't on, he doesn't do the deals. So the focus isn't on out there, it's within the dressing room and what he's got there. But ultimately, mate, obviously, what's your own thoughts in terms of Brendan saying there's nothing new, obviously, in the transfer front? And yeah, the way we sit here now.
Well, I think being a realist, I'm going to be realistic about this. The players that we've watched as a fan base over the years, your Kyogos, go back, guys like Christopher Aya, recently Jota, Abada. You go back even further, players like Frimpong. Celtic have built a winning culture of domination. We've dominated Scottish football over the past 10, 11 years. We've done that using a player trading model. Celtic don't go out and sign £25 million players. We create £25 million players. So you can't enjoy all the success that you've had over the years with the club providing players using that model and then absolutely lambast it. So as a realistic Celtic fan, I think all I'm really looking for is a bit of balance, and I don't see it in it. Brendan, his comments there, you know, the one word I'm no keen on is hopeful. So he's said that a few times. I would rather hear a bit more conviction from Brendan. But there was a bit of conviction when he spoke about, not in that audio you played there, when he spoke about, you know, the club's run a certain way and it's been successful for a long time, ran that way. And so those type of comments are a bit more reassuring. It's definitely plain to see that we need players in the advanced positions. I mean, that's, you know, you'd need to be a fool not to recognise that. But recruitment and bringing players to football clubs is obviously a really complex thing. And that's where we're at. So if Celtic bring the players in that Brendan wants and that we need, and they do it with a few days to go of the transfer window, it's imperfect. It's not a perfect process, but it's that wee saying, all is well that ends well. So we still have plenty of time to get these players in. You have to factor into the Champions League qualifiers, and I get that there's an anxiety there about those fixtures. Well, we're all the same. So the bitterness towards the Celtic board, to me, is it's bordering on foolish, because what more do you want? What more do you want? You know, you win season after season. So I am frustrated at times that there isn't that wee bit more faith and clarity on how Celtic operate. But I do understand that we're an emotional fan base, and you know, we're obsessed with being number one. And I'm the same, I'm no different. But I'm going to give it the relevant time before, if, you know, I start criticising the club. I'm just not prepared to do that at this moment in time. History tells me Celtic will come good and will get this right. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I think ultimately, Sean, that's, you know, that's what Barry means there about Celtic being so successful through the years, and obviously, you know, demonstrating that by the trophy haul they've gave us, mate, over the last decade just alone. And but obviously, listening to that audio with Brendan regarding you know, regarding the transfer situation, how things are, what's your own thoughts here, mate?
I thought that interview was a slightly more optimistic than his last one. The one before that, you know, I came away from it thinking, right. But when I look at it now, it looks to me like Brendan was putting maybe a wee bit more pressure on the board to get these deals done. They're obviously working on, you know, I do believe that RODGERS has got players that he wants. He's went to the board and said, these are the guys I want, make it happen. And I do think the board are working on that. And I do think they will come in towards the end of the window. It's been a slow process, but we are just fans. We don't know what goes into, you know, signing a player, all the finer details, the things that can hold us signing up. You know, last minute twists and turns. I alluded in the last podcast, you know, that the Riley McGree deal was all but done, and then in the final hour he chose to jump ship, and look what happened. We ended up with Matt Riley. I'm in the same boat as Barry. I mean, the stuff that's coming aimed towards the board is just it's baffling at times. I mean, you said as well there, JP, the amount of success it's been over the years. Yeah, the managers have brought that, but the managers need a foundation, and the foundation is the board. And, you know, 13 leagues out of the last 14, you know, umpteen cups. And, you know, I feel like Celtic fans are happy to accept all the plaudits and all the glory that comes with the trophies and the cups and all this. But we fail to we're like a fan base that suffer from amnesia. We forget we forget the success that we've had under this board, and in the same breath, the mob at the other side, they forget but they've no one, because they think every season that they're going to come in and win this, that, and the next. And I've seen people saying, "Oh, but they've got new people in running them now, and they're signing this, that, and the next man." Their biggest problem is overspending. They've had the highest wage bill in Scotland for quite a number of years now, and that just shows you how well the board are managing our club. And it's just quite alarming to see this, year in. It's as if there's any time something doesn't go the way Celtic fans want it to, it's the board that ultimately get it. But in the same breath, when things are all going right, they don't. You look at the situation with when Postecoglou came in. That was Eddie Howe right up until he done a runner in the final hour, and the board acted quick to get Postecoglou in, and the success followed, and that a lot of stigma came with that. But when Postecoglou brought the success to Celtic, I know it was the vast majority it was down to him and what he got out of the players and what they done on the park. But the initial chess move was from the board. They made that, they made that happen, and there was a lot of people that weren't behind it. You had Alan Brazil on top court with his famous line. So I think we as Celtic fans need to take a step back and think like, what is this board brought us in terms of success? And as Barry said, there's clearly a player trading model which has worked. It's worked for years. It's why we've got money in the bank. So why do we all of a sudden want to go and spend, 12, 15 million pound on a player that, if you're getting guys at 1.5 million and sell them on for 25 million, what's the big need to go and spend 12, 15 million on a guy that you just don't know?
Yeah, 100%. Listen, I find it absolutely astonishing the way the board are treated in certain aspects. I've heard people say the board don't put the tracksuits on, they don't put the training gear on, they don't go on the field. No, they don't, but they bring the guys who do. So if it wasn't for the board, we wouldn't have Brendan Rodgers twice as a Celtic manager. We wouldn't be having guys like Ange Postecoglou, who have gave yous nothing but success, days out in the boozers, street parties down the Trongate. Who gets credit for that? Like, where does that all come from? Does that all just get plucked out of thin air, or in a wee jar of bubbles that you blow out in a wee stick? No, obviously no. That comes from the board. This is a board who run the club diligently. Now, if it wasn't for our board, like I say, as I've said it on here, see if it was down to the fans and we were a fans-run club, Celtic would be in a gutter by Tuesday. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean all the money would get packed away and we would be in the absolute gutter by Tuesday. Now, I know the fans aren't asking for multi-millions of pounds being spent. I get that. But they're asking for 11 million on this guy. Go and pay 12 million on this guy. Go and pay 13 million on the boy who's just went in Norwich. Who's to say it would have worked out? Who's to say it would have worked out? The fans asked the club to spend money last year. They paid 9 million quid for Adam Eder. They paid 11 million quid in Arnie Engels, and they paid 6 million quid in Austin Trusty. Now they're all moaning about the 3 players. And by the way, these 3 players helped the club to nearly a ball hair away from winning another treble and got to the knockout phase of the Champions League last year. So, who brought them into the club then? Because we just heard Brendan Rodgers there saying, it's not him that takes part of the deals. So who is it? Who does this? Who is it that does that? Who sanctions that? I'm not on board, right? And I understand everybody's got an opinion. Me personally, I'm not on board with a Celtic bashing. I'm not on board with that. Now, I remember somebody called me a happy clapper. You're damn right I'm a happy clapper. I'm 41 years of age. I grew up watching Celtic, but by the way, see the fan base we've got now, this young breed of fans. They don't know what losing is. I grew up when Celtic didn't win. We were turning up to games and teams like Dundee were beating us. I watched guys like Carol Muggleton, Wayne Biggins, Ian Andrews. That was the Celtic I remember. So, I'm being told that Celtic are poor now when we've won our first league game of the season and we've actually got a gap between us and my biggest rivals. By the way, Celtic have done all this. In the last decade, we live in a country where we've got a massive rivalry. A massive rivalry, which is renowned for being the biggest in the world, even with this tribute act that's here now. So, you know, Barry, help me out, man. Have I missed something here?
No, I'm enjoying this. I think we're getting to the nitty-gritty here, you know, because I've heard things like, you know, this board lack ambition and they run it like an amateur football club. Well, I don't know. When was the last time you as a Celtic fan, right? Ask yourself, when was the last time you as a Celtic fan had a poor season? COVID? Other than that, all we've really known is success, victory, winning. And let's be quite candid about it, right? Laughing at our rivals. We've been mocking them, ridiculing them, laughing at them. That's been going on season after season after season. And yet, you still have an element of the fan base absolutely attacking the board. It beggars belief. Look, they're not perfect. It's not a perfect board. It's not a perfect club. But like you just said, JP, the starting point for me as a Celtic fan, because I suffered. I know what it's like to lose as a Celtic fan. I know what it's like, by the way, to be ridiculed as a Celtic fan. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end. So for us to have dominated for so long, you know, it's to be admired, really. The Celtic done an invincible treble. You know, Celtic done a quadruple under this board. Did we just write that off? Did we just write off the board bringing a guy from Asia to the club who would go on to become an icon for Celtic in Kyogo? What do we put that down to? I mean, if you're going to attack the Celtic board for the so-called mistakes they're making, then you better back that up with applause for all the good that they've done. And I'm not a cheerleader for the Celtic board. I wish they'd done things a bit quicker. I would like to see them speculate and try and sign players, you know, in that kind of 9 million, 10 million bracket. But the risk and reward is just dismal. It's dismal. For Celtic to go and sign a player at £2 million or £3 million and equally sign a player for £9 or £10 million, the ratio of getting that right is the percentages run about the same. But failure for that to work for Celtic would reflect really bad on the club. So the player trading model we use is the right one. I just think a wee bit more perspective would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, we can all clearly see, like we says at the beginning of this, we can all clearly see, you know, that Celtic need surgery at the top end of the field. We can all clearly see that, mate. And we're not saying that shouldn't, you know, be getting done. It should be. I think it's atrocious that it's not been done by now. But am I jumping on the bandwagon of, you know, I can understand to an element as to maybe why it's not been done. So, what I don't understand is this outcry and outrage at a club that's so successful. I don't understand that, because could see the outrage and, you know, the way things are just now. If this was a club back in the early 90s, mate, where we were in a crisis, we were minutes away from closing down completely. And there wasn't any of that administration away back in the day, mate, to help you. The Bonnet came in and saved us, Fergus McCann. And I've said it, as much as people might not have agreed with all his methods either, that man shouldn't be travelling on a train with his missus going to a game. He should be getting picked up and lifted and laid and treated like a god.
Yeah.
For that football club. Now, that's a different story. That we could probably sit and do another podcast on, that alone. But aye, like I says, I can understand, you know, football transfers is not an exact science. People are saying to me, JP, other clubs are doing it. No, they are, but other clubs are in desperate need of massive surgery. You know, other clubs need other players. Celtic are doing that diligently. They're doing it in a way where they're, you know, it needs to be the right player, in my opinion, Sean. I think it needs to be the right player. I don't, listen, I'm not daft enough. I know how, through guys like Barry Bannon been on here, through our good friend Peter Martin, who's been on the channel, through guys like Anthony Joseph, who's been on the channel. See, when you get speaking to these guys, mate, you get to kind of get a gauge of how things start working in the football transfer industry. I don't doubt Brendan's had players come on his table and he's probably looked them over and he's maybe just not wanted to sign off on them. Why? Because they're not where he wants them to be. He's maybe brought in enough development players that, yeah, he wants to work with, yeah, he's excited about, but he knows now we're at a point in the window, and there comes a point where, in every window, in my opinion, Sean, where we try and we bring in that quality to come in and really help your first team straight away. No guys that are going to take 6-7 months to get used to the thing, and then, you know, then we might get to see them. Because in 6 months' time, we're going to see Jota back in the team, hopefully. And that's his prognosis. He's been scheduled to come back in January by the club. So what we're now looking for is guys to come into the team. Even guys, I would say, like Abada. I'm saying, because of Yamada, I'm thinking I'm doing well. But no, Abada. But even then, Abada wasn't the finished article. But by God, did he make an impact? Similar to Scott Sinclair, in my opinion. Even guys at that, you know, at that calibre is what Brendan's looking for, in my opinion, Sean. Like I say, mate, I don't doubt players have not come on his table and came across his emails or whatever the way they do it in there. I don't know, but he's maybe just not wanted to sign off on any players because of, you know, and I can understand if he's waiting till that right one comes along, and it will come along.
No, I agree with you, JP, and, you know, I think Mark had said on the podcast the other night there that, you know, it wasn't until late in the window that we actually signed Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think he was one of the late ones to come in. I think he'd mentioned possibly Jota as well in that same breath. So, and these are deals that, you know, that's not just done in an impulsive, we need somebody in, get it done a week before the deadline. That's obviously something that the board have been working on a long time before the guys came in. And Carter Vickers wasn't even anywhere near the Tottenham team, so you know, he's been and that was obviously clearly still something that took a lot of time to get him in the door. Yeah. So the transfers are just not straightforward. I would agree with you. Like I would like to see it done a wee bit quicker, but I'm not an expert, JP. I don't know what goes on with negotiating. Celtic clearly want to get a bang for the buck, which has worked well for us. You know, we want to get them at the best price possible so that there's profit to sell them on. And you can't argue with that, you know, and you can see that we've been trying it. You know, we brought in Home, Tillio. These are guys that were you know, low cost, not a great gamble. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you're no losing £9-10 million at it, mate. And that's the club we are, and fans need to understand that. And it's what's brought us so much success. So, I think the deals will come in, mate. I do think, we're going to get these guys in. And it's going to be people Brendan wants, and it's going to be in the positions that we want to see them in. And then we'll all be happy again.
Yeah, 100%. Just to reply to Finbar there in the comments about the fellas on this panel and how, we're happy clappers and all the rest of it, mate. I don't know how long you've watched the channel for. To be fair, I've been on the channel hosting now for a number of years. So I've watched all that success that we are currently chatting about, mate. And you're talking about we'll never improve or get better in regards to Europe. I just watched Celtic in the Champions League knockout phase there, mate, in last season. So, as I said, mate, I don't know how often you tune into the channel, mate. We are on multiple times throughout the week. But I like to think I'm quite a positive guy, mate. I do have different opinions, as you probably know that I've certainly got a different opinion for yourself, but that's okay. I mean, that's okay if you've got a different opinion for me. That's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it a brilliant thing. Because it's it would be very boring, I think, if we were all the same. And if things were easy, they wouldn't be worth doing. So as I said, Finbar, I do appreciate you for tuning in, pal. But I've said it here tonight. If watching my team winning and enjoying that and enjoying the success and enjoying the team lifting trophy after trophy every season makes me a happy clapper, then I'll lick that stamp, mate, and put it right on my head for you if you need me. Because I'll as much as I've also said, if you have been listening to all of it, I think that it's atrocious just now that we don't have the players in that we do desire. But I think it's no, you've not touched a nerve, mate. You've not touched a nerve. I've had to deal with plenty more difficult comments than your own Finbar. My upbringing, mate, certainly what you've said tonight's not going to annoy me. Trust me.
Yeah,
I don't like it when I get called a happy clapper for enjoying watching my team. And like I say, I don't get paid to do this. I do this out my own time. I do this off my own back. And the people that want to sit in the comments and chuck a wee bit of abuse or sling some comments, then I do think it's only right that I explain why I have my own opinion and why I have the opinions that I do have, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to change. Sean, sorry, mate.
No, I was just going to put a question to the both of you there, just to give you an example of sort of like the players that were out there and the values of them. I look at Naroki and Lager Bielka and what we paid for them. And I was going to ask you a question: if we had signed Liam Scales for 5 or 6 million, given what he's given back to us in his time that he's been at Celtic, would you, as a Celtic fan, be thinking to yourself that was a great bit of business?
Yeah.
Now there's a bit of perspective for you in terms of this is a guy as well that's been absolutely ridiculed by the Celtic fan base, and we go him for buttons. We go him for buttons. I couldn't tell you, mate, but it wasn't a great deal. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up.
I would agree. Yeah.
But if you're going to go out and sign somebody to put in some of the performances that he's put in for Celtic, we had 2 guys that couldn't do that in Naroki and Lagerbielke, and we paid good money for them. So this is what you're up against with some Celtic fans. Liam Scales had an absolute blinder at the weekend. He was one of our best players. And that spared them, the firing squad. But I don't like this game-to-game basis where, if somebody has an off game, they're getting lambasted by the Celtic fans. Because players can't play, 100% every game for a full season. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Right, gents, we've got by that. Now there is a small matter of Celtic and match day 2 up at Pittodrie, Buzz. First of all, come to you, mate, regarding the thoughts going into Sunday's match. Knowing that we've got another full squad to choose from the lads that's there just now. Obviously, Jamai, Simpson, Puget's not available. Brendan did say he's a bit behind and he's still got a bit to do on his own kind of endurance and stuff to be ready to come into the team. That's what Brendan says. There's no major rush. He's here for a season, but there will be games where he's needed. And so in terms of Aberdeen, mate, what kind of challenges do you think we will face going up there this time?
I think we'll face a confident Aberdeen, an Aberdeen that believe they can win that game, and so they should. You know, the last game we played was a cup final, and they lifted the trophy. So they will be feeling confident. They will be feeling good. There's plenty of belief that they can win that game. I'm just looking forward to seeing my team play. You know, I enjoy getting into every game as a Celtic fan. I look forward to it. I'm quite happy to see the team fight and battle to get wins. Of course, I prefer playing great football and scoring 3, 4, 5 goals. But, you know, never forget your old ass. You know, we've got humble beginnings as a football club, so if we need to roll our sleeves up and dog it out, then fair dues. Team selection will be interesting, JP. I think I would like to see Forrest come in and play for the start ahead of Yang. Other than that, I think the team will probably remain the same. I could make a case for Engels starting the game over Hatate, which I know won't be a popular opinion, but I just think Engels, with his physicality and his running power, might allow Nygren a bit less defensive work, which, you know, could suit us in that game. I think Luke McCown's put himself in a position to start that game as well. So, yeah, I'll just look forward to it.
Yeah, and obviously yourself, Sean, obviously what kind of Aberdeen do you think Celtic might face on this Sunday, bearing in mind they're off the back of a defeat themselves at Tynecastle against Hearts? So, another defeat to them on Sunday, mate, could really put a cat amongst the pigeons for Jimmy Taylor, because he's been well backed by the Aberdeen hierarchy and some of the windows that he's been here.
No, I agree with you, mate. His Aberdeen team at the start of the season, obviously, last year were, you know, phenomenal. And then they went off the boil a wee bit. Done tremendous to win the cup final, you know. But it's always a difficult place to go to. Up there, you know, the crowd make it noisy. You know, it's a fair drive up. But the Celtic fans will be there in their numbers as they do, and you know, it'll be a loud match, well contested. It'll be a good game, JP. It will be a good game. It always is up there. And I'm just looking to, you know, the nucleus of the Celtic team have been up there. They've experienced it. So, you know, we're going up there. You know, we're not going up there with like 4 or 5 new faces going into a stadium and a fan base that they've never experienced. You know, we're taking an experienced squad up there. So I do think we will get the win, albeit it might not be smooth sailing at times. But I am confident that, you know, we'll get the job done. And just to follow on from my earlier chat, Scales was 500,000 Celtic paid for him.
From Shamrock Rovers, yeah. That's unbelievable considering where he is now. For me, that is unbelievable. And like you said, Sean, he was outstanding. I was at the game on Sunday and I thought he was a colossal. I actually really enjoyed watching Scales play at the weekend, and obviously shows his versatility and all when he pops into left back as well towards the end of the game. His delivery, the ball he puts in for Ida when Ida takes his Barry, me and you had a chat about this, that one he takes on the chest. I actually thought at first when he contemplates where he's going to go over the head, and then he all of a sudden just backs off, takes it in the chest, and then he hits the post. I mean, the way things are going for Adam Ida just now, that isn't a surprise, actually. I thought that actual instant was, you know, it was easier to score. But yeah, that delivery for that moment was a great ball as well. So, yeah, I really enjoyed watching Big Scalesy and his aggression and going for the ball. But that's the thing as well. I mean, you heard Brendan earlier as well, lads, on Sky speaking to Luke Shanley, and he speaks about Jamai obviously coming in as well, and how good he is and how the quality that he's shown. Now, I got a right good feeling about him right away when I heard the manager talking about how good he is. You know, and this is Brendan, by the way, that's an elite coach talking about him. So he's not telling us, you know, that this boy's he's got a lot to do. He's only telling us he's got a lot to do in terms of his fitness. That's it. He's not got a lot to do in terms of his all-round ability. So, like say Big Scalesy, guys like Trusty, these boys are going to be on their toes because they know there's competition in there now. Even Dane Murray's chapping the door as well. So, obviously, he did an impressive time over the pre-season as well. But, yeah, I thought he was very good. Touching on the Aberdeen team, I watched a wee bit of I managed to see a wee bit of the Hearts game. They look a very big team. They look quite physical. But yeah, as did St Mirren at the weekend. It's going to be good to see our football and the way we play, because I've noticed a wee change, especially with the 2-8s. There's a positional change with them. And so they do it simultaneously, but they'll take shots each. I noticed Hatate drop him into the half mid-6, turning his head. Instead of going to the left, he was coming to the right. So last season, he was normally going predominantly down the left to Maeda constantly. He wasn't. He was coming in the way, which totally threw their 8 runner for St Mirren, because O'Hara initially started to drift towards the left when he sees that. I thought that was really, when I was watching that and I was looking at the way he was dropping in, I was like, what's he doing? And then when I seen him coming over, I watched how the Celtic manipulated St Mirren, because they could predict what was happening elsewhere. When you seen Negrin, and he was peeling out to the right, Negrin was then dragging 2 of the St Mirren players out of position, which then allowed Callum McGregor to have a lot more space through the middle. So I think it's going to be interesting, because the way Aberdeen normally change from time to time depending on who they played. They've went 4-3-3. Last season predominantly they were 4-2-3-1, and then they changed to a 4-3-3 against us in the cup final, and that's where they got a lot of joy. They went high and wide, and they got the ball across the face of the goal at pace. Now, if they don't go 4-3-3, it'll be 4-2-3-1. So it's going to be interesting to see who fits into that sort of shape for them and the way that they do it. I think if they play Graham Chinney, they're going to be in trouble, especially the way Engels moves, like you talked about, Baz, his energy, his physicality, the running power he has. And then you look at Negrin, who's not a strength violet, by the way, he can shift. Mm-hmm. I think Celtic will get that of joy in there, especially the controlling aspect of the game, because Celtic ultimately will play with the 2 controllers as well in there. So I'm quite intrigued to see. I would like to see James Forrest start as well. Again, it's all about fitness. We talk about guys like Kieran Tierney. We haven't even spoke about him yet. He's just signing in the summer. This is a guy who's a marquee signing and the biggest signing any club in this country will make this summer. So, we've not even mentioned him. We're about another 9 minutes into this podcast. That's the first time he's been brought up. So, we'll get Kieran Tierney there as well. He'll give us that dynamic running power. Now, I don't know if it'll be the boy Nelson that plays out on the right-hand side for Aberdeen, but a lot of his passing will be back away or inward, because Kieran Tierney will force that. He'll force him back away. And I've noticed as well, I don't know about you boys, Barry, I'll bring you back in on this. Maeda doesn't have to do much running back now, because he knows what he's got sort of behind him. Kieran Tierney's like having 2 players really, because he can cover the both areas and he's really good at doing it. Trouble was on Sunday, he just runs at that wee bit of fitness, and you see him towards the end of the game. He has tried to gain fitness, but he is kind of blowing. I noticed Anamura wasn't there. Who knows whether he'll be there or not? But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how they set up against us, because watching the way we played against St Mirren, with the height and physical presence that St Mirren had, that'll give Jimmy Taylor food for thought, mate.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see how they line up and obviously the personnel. But listen, when it comes to domestic football, it's always about what Celtic do. That changes when we get into Europe, of course, but this game, even though it's away from home at a difficult venue, this is really about what Celtic do. And, you know, when I heard you rhyming off the players there, the different options, you know, when you really look at Celtic objectively, the squad, without all the emotion and the different narratives, it's a really healthy football squad we've got. It's really competitive, it's quite deep, the squad as well. The only issue we really have is a couple of players in those forward positions. So Celtic need to get that right, and I believe they will. If you add 2 forward players to that Celtic squad, there's a lot of quality there. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of experience. You know, I think one of you mentioned about continuity. A lot of these guys have been at Celtic, you know, right from when Brendan came back and even beforehand. So, you know, I realise that we've questioned a lot of the views on the board during this podcast, and I think rightly so. But we do have a sensational fan base. You know, we're world renowned for this. You know, what an incredible support we bring to the club. So, you know, we are at the heart of our football club, the fans, and we're a special group of fans. We're demanding, we're always looking for more, we crave success, I get all that. But I think when you step out of the emotion of it all and look at the Celtic squad, it's healthy. It's really healthy. Other than those few key positions that, you know, Brendan's made no secret that it's the top end of the pitch. So, yeah, I honestly think, well, see, by the time the window closes, we'll all be smiling. That's what I think is going to happen. But going into Sunday, yeah, I think some of those boys will have a point to prove as well. I mean, you know, Callum McGregor was in tears, lost his first ever final as a Celtic player against Aberdeen. And I'm sure a few of the other boys will have a score to settle there. So they've got that wee extra bit of motivation. But I just think we're a right good football team. You know, to use a phrase that wee Gordon Stratton used to say, who wasn't everybody's cup of tea either, wee Stratton, although he was massively successful. Excellent Celtic manager. But we're a right good football team, and we play football the way we all want it to be played, and it's effective, and we win a lot of games and we win a lot of trophies. So just looking forward to it, mate, and I do expect whatever way the game pans out, if it's a dogged affair or Celtic turn up and really put it on them, I still expect the outcome to be the same. Celtic will get the 3 points.
Yeah, obviously, Sean, everybody will remember back to the cup final and obviously the penalty shootout. Aberdeen, like Barry mentioned there about Callum McGregor in tears because he lost his first cup final. That was Brendan's first loss in a cup final as well. I wouldn't necessarily say revenge, mate, but our football and the tempo of our football, I would imagine, would be slightly different on Sunday. And you look at options, right? We didn't have Kieran Tierney. We didn't have Rio Atati. We didn't have Benji Negrin in that cup final. 2 of those, obviously, have just come in the summer. And in my opinion, makes the Celtic first team better in those areas just now, and really, really hugely compliment the side, mate. So the intensity and the tempo that Celtic are going to play at, you would only think that it's going to be certainly higher and a wee bit fresher as well than what we saw in the cup final, mate.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same boat, mate. I think a lot of time's passed now to call it revenge. You know, going up there and getting revenge. Too much time's passed, and you know, there's been a lot of stuff done in between that time. But I do think we're going to go. And do you know, Celtic didn't play bad at the weekend. I know I've seen people coming on here on YouTube and on other podcasts that I go on and stuff, and saying that Celtic were really off the races that day. I don't think we were. I think we just knocked at the door against a team that are very well drilled. We spoke about it on the podcast with Barry Bannon. You know exactly what you're going to get out of St Mirren. Well drilled, hard to break. And Celtic tried, and it just took time for it to happen. But I think, off the back of our win last week going into this game, I think Celtic are going to have a right go at Aberdeen, mate. I think it's going to be a really good open game, but I think we'll just have too much for them. Like you said, with the additions of Tierney, Negrin, we never had Patati last season, who in the cup final, I reckon we missed him massively. He's just that one player that can unlock that pass. That you can make a difference in the type of games. The one-half games. Having a player like him.
It's just that half pocket he drifts into, Sean. That we just didn't have that in the cup final, mate. Whenever you're looking for that wee spark. Now, him doing that, you would think, right, what's he doing? But he brings guys like Ida to life, because Ida then makes that crossover run, and before you know it, we're in behind Aberdeen's, backline. The way that Ida goes scores is a totally different matter, but those chances, they don't come in the cup final because that option's not there.
No, I agree with you, and you could see it as clear as day. And Patati came in for a lot of stick and all last season. There was people saying that we need to even look at replacing Patati in the midfield. Yeah, Christ, but I think Celtic, you'll see a right solid performance for Celtic, free flowing, as Barry said. We're a great club to watch. Our football's fantastic, and it's fine tuned. RODGERS has got him like a well-oiled machine. Everybody knows their role. There's goals for all over the park. I know we're talking about the deficiencies up front now, but this is a Celtic team RODGERS has built that's got goals all over the park. So even although we're light up top, I'm never in doubt that Celtic are going to get goals. Obviously, we want reinforcements in the areas, and I do believe it will come. But this Celtic team got goals all over it, and I think the weekend will be a really good, solid performance for Celtic, and that's what I'm hoping for as well.
Yeah, 100%. You talk about the St Mirren game just quickly before we go on to team the lineup predictions. Fans might not even look at this, but the way I see the football, that's probably one of your toughest games, albeit at Celtic Park, because you're against a side. Ultimately, the only 3 teams in the league that have been in the top 6 in the last 3 years in a row, us, the Mob across the water, and St Mirren. So that shows you how difficult that tie is going to be now. Sean, you're bang on, mate. As much as we only won the game 1-0, Celtic had enough chances there to kill 2-3 games off. Just unlucky, we never managed to do it. We hit the woodwork a couple of times. Their keeper pulls off a couple of saves. The one with Negrin right before half time was under the goalie, hits the bar. I actually thought, but everybody ran about me thought it was in. And all of a sudden, it wasn't. McGregor scores. It's been chopped off. So we'd enough chances in there to win a few games. If we take another couple of chances there, you're looking at a totally different game, and people are walking away going, hey, by the way, we battered them here. So, and being at the game, it was not like we weren't under any pressure. We weren't under any, I don't even think Casper was reading the paper. He was reading Casper was reading the Daily Record halfway through the game. He slippers on and everything, me cigar and everything. So
was he not watching clips of the unrestricted view, no?
No, he was watching reruns of last week's podcast before the game. Barry Bannon was on me. He was catching up with what Barry was saying. Big shout out to Barry. I know he's obviously signed a new contract with Sheffield Wednesday, showing his loyalty to the club through a very difficult time just now. So fair play to you, man, and best of luck to you for the season. Right, lads, I'm obviously at the part now where I'm going to ask you for your team prediction. I'm going to do this a wee bit different, Barry. I've been coming to you first all night, but I'm going to go with Sean this time for his team prediction. So, Sean, before you demonstrate your hockey skills again, you've done well tonight up to now. I'm going to ask you for your team prediction for Sunday.
There's a shift in momentum now with my Wi-Fi, so we're doing all right. I think it will be Schmeichel in goal, AJ at right back, Carter Vickers, Scales. How could you leave Scales at that team, given his performance last week? I know Trusty came in and done a good job, and Scales had to go at left, but Scales was tremendous at centre back. And then naturally Tierney at left back. That's a no-brainer.
Wow. I know. Still,
just every time you mention the left back, and then you go Tierney. Wow. Okay.
I know. You wouldn't get anybody of that quality, mate, for anything under 15 million. Tierney's quality, so that's what we've got in our hands in Tierney, and that kind of goes under the radar. Just because we know him. Do you know what I mean? He's one of us. So, but and then I would go. I think it's just going to be. I think it's going to be unchanged. I think he's going to stick with Hatate, McGregor, Nygren in the middle. I don't think that'll change. I know Barry maybe thinks differently, but and then out on the right, I think it will be Forrest. I thought Forrest looked sharp and lively when he came on. For the life of me, I really want to see Yang do well, but maybe he is going to just be one of these guys that's a great impact player. A bit like Haksabanovic, every time he came on, he looked, lightning, frightening, and whenever he started a game, he was awful. Mm-hmm. And then out on the left, Maeda, and through the middle, Ida. I think that's your team for the weekend, mate.
Okay, Baz?
Yeah, I think it'll be Schmeichel, CCB, Scales, Tierney. It'll be McGregor, Nygren. Did I not say AJ, no?
You just said Schmeichel, CCV, Scales and Tierney. They're playing a back three.
Back three?
That's it. It's just give Aberdeen a chance, do you know what I mean?
On the stuff there. So.
Yeah. No, so it'll be AJ, CCV, Scales and Tierney, and Schmeichel being goals, by the way. McGregor, Nygren. I would like Engels to start the game ahead of Hatate. That's what I would like to see happen. I'm not sure if that will happen. I think Brendan maybe will play Rio. But I'd like to see Engels in there just for that physicality and to allow Nygren to kind of loiter further up the pitch and give less defensive duties. And I think it will be Maeda on the left, either through the middle and hopefully Forrest out on the right. And let's hope Adam Maeda gets a goal and just kind of gets that boost of confidence, gets the fans off his back a wee bit as well. So in an ideal scenario, I'd like to see either open the scoring and, if Celtic go and score a few more after that, great. If not, I'll take 1-0, head up the road.
Yeah. I think it'll be Casper, AJ, CCV, Scales and Tierney. I do see where you're coming from regarding Engels, Baz, but I think for the time being just now, until something goes drastically wrong, I think it'll be Hatate, McGregor and Nygren. I think watching those three over pre-season and listening to Barry Bannon, you tend to think, the way he's played them together on the pre-season, and it's worked into the first game of the season. I think until something really, really goes wrong, I think, like he says, but I can see your argument towards Engels because of his running power and what he brings the team. I do think he's a great option to bring on. But I think it'll be those three in the middle. I do think James Forrest will start. I think it'll be James Forrest on the right, and I think it'll be Maeda on the left. I actually think he's going to play Johnny Kenny, lads.
I knew you were going to say that. I was waiting on it, big man.
I actually think he's going to play Johnny Kenny. You can't go through what you've done today and then all of a sudden Johnny Kenny sits on your bench, holding jackets. So I actually think, and I think for two reasons. One, because you want to give Johnny a bit of confidence due to getting this new deal. Two, I think you want to take a bit of the limelight away from Adam Maeda just now. And Brendan's a clever manager that way as well, and that's the way well, it's certainly the way I would go about my business on Sunday. For the fact as well, Johnny can impact the game. And I do think Johnny's got something about him that, you know, he might just give us something different. And there's fans saying he does a bit lazy and Johnny makes different runs for Ida. So Johnny's a different type of player, Adam Ida. Although the both of them equally share physicality. Johnny maybe is a slight bit quicker, I would say, from looking at the two of them running. But he also gives you that in-behind option as well. Whereas Ida likes to come... Ida comes into the kind of 10 position, picks the ball up, links play. Johnny likes to get in behind. He likes to get in behind the defender. He's one of those players that can play on the shoulder as well. And I think Brendan might use that weapon with Hatate's passing to try and get through. Watching Aberdeen against Hearts, especially the two boys they played at centre-back, they looked rather slow. And they looked a bit, I don't know, sluggish, jaded. And I think Brendan might want to use that as an example for the team that he's ready to field. So I just for that I think Johnny Kenny's going to start the game. That's my thoughts. Yeah, so we'll wait and see. Obviously, I'm no Brendan. I'm no there. I've not seen the team train this week. Johnny Kenny might have had an absolute nightmare in training. I know he's had a new deal with Dave, but no, I'd like to see a wee bit more of him as a Celtic fan. Let's see what we're going to, what have we invested the next 4 years in. Let's see it. Come on, you've said he's come on leaps and bounds, so let's see him. Let's have a look at him. Give him a run of games. Give the boy a chance to go and score goals for the team. Give the boy a chance to go and make a name for himself with the Celtic fans. And who knows, show that boy a bit of belief. God knows, he might start to run through brick walls the way Liam Scales has for you at the back. Because another Irish player in the Celtic team might do his own international career a bit of justice there, and he might get recognition there, who knows. And might just help Adam Eder as well, give him that bit up the backside. Right, big man, you're going to have to maybe go that 5% extra now to displace this guy for the team. I'm not completely writing Shin Yamada out, by the way. I think there'll be a part to play there as well, because he's travelled far afield to, like I say, I like that term in holding jackets. I don't think he'll be able to do that for too long either, and sitting on that bench. So, but now we're at a point in the window, lads, where if we are going to sign another forward, this is when you'll see these guys stepping up. If these guys have got the cojones to do this and be at Celtic and show what they can do week in and week out for Celtic, then you'll see the difference, because you'll see the spark. And what a way to do it than going away up in Pittodrie and showing what you can do. But Friday night, that's all we've got time for. Barry, I want to thank yourself for coming on again with us, mate, and giving us your thoughts. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thanks, big guy. No, thanks for hosting. You always do an excellent job. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We wouldn't have a podcast if we didn't have the viewers. So, we appreciate each and every one of you for being here and keeping us company. And Sean, good to have you on. And yeah, looking forward to the weekend, boys. Hope you have a good one.
Yeah, Sean, obviously yourself, mate, as well, coming on, giving us your thoughts. It's good to get you back on as well.
I know, I do appreciate it, JP. Thanks for having me, mate. You always host the show really well, mate. So it's always very smooth. And thanks to everybody that watches and comments. Whether we agree or we don't, that's what makes podcasts enjoyable. Different opinions, different views. We'll just need to get Ryan's opinion to see if JP did actually take that comment to heart.
Listen, I'll vouch for JP.
He might be at Oasis tonight with Scales.
The guys upstairs have just told me I've got a photo of the two of them in the camera spun. There we go.
Yes. Oh, dearie me.
They've been seen together at Murrayfield.
Right.
I just hope Scales is
well,
fully
there's the footage. Yeah, there's the footage there. The proof's in the pudding, you know what I mean? That's not been photoshopped at all.
What was you were
It's
going
not
to say
been-
there?
It's not even an AI.
That-
It's not even an AI
That,
creation.
no, that image is an original. You know, that's not been touched, not been photoshopped. That's the real McCoy. That.
Apparently it was taken 10 minutes ago, so it can't have been. Nobody's tampered with it. I just put it up there for getting it sent into me. So no,
What
definitely.
song? What song were they singing along to? Live Forever.
Believe it or not, Supersonic.
Oh dear. Superb.
Hopefully Big Scalesies look Supersonic on Sunday when the game kicks off. But no, like I say, as Barry mentioned, folks, you guys that have tuned in across the platforms, this channel wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for you guys. We do appreciate everybody who's got opinions and everybody, you know, we thank everybody for your comments. Finbars, just in case you were wondering, pal, if you are still watching, I do use a clapper about my housemate. Putting lights on and that as well. I don't know what I'm doing that as well. It doesn't annoy your wife right enough because I clap dead loud. But aye, sometimes I wake up the veins as well. But that's the nature of being a big clapper. I get tested years ago for having a clap, but it turns out I'm just one big clapper or a girl. But aye, as I say, that's the way the cookie crumbles. But thanks again, everybody that's tuned in with us. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. If you are new to the channel and you've just came across us, please hit the like and a subscribe. It does help the channel go a long way. Like we mentioned, Barry Bannon is on the channel. He does take part, so it helps us get guys like him, like Peter Martin, like Paul Hartley, and all the guys we have had on. You get them in the video section of the YouTube channel. If you are interested in previous podcasts, should this be your first one tonight? But full due respect, have a lovely weekend. If you're going to the game on Sunday, do enjoy and take care. We'll be back Monday. Hail, hail, folks.
Keep clapping. Hail, hail.
Hail,
Hail, hail. Take care, lads.
Sets up Larson here. Larson. Oh, he's in! Henrik Larsson! That is sensational! O'Reilly, how about that for a pass? Jota! How about that for a finish? That is Jota for you! In for Henrik Larsson, and Moravcik! His first goal for Celtic! Here is Shunsuke Nakamura! Exquisite!